One of the most important countries in the world just rewrote the world order with Bitcoin. And I don't think most people understand what actually just happened. The Fed has one weapon: freeze the money, cut off a country, starve their economy. Iran knows this better than almost anyone. So they did something nobody in Washington saw coming. They made Bitcoin the mandatory toll for 20% of the world's oil supply. Not dollars, not SWIFT, not gold, Bitcoin. And the United States can do absolutely nothing about it. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why Iran is trying to stockpile Bitcoin. I believe that they're preparing for the next crisis that some experts predict is going to shock the world. And my prediction is backed up by a billionaire's stock picks. Will Bitcoin mining infrastructure be the next major battleground over the next few years? And I'll go through why, if you haven't taken your self-custody seriously, you should start right now. This is Dante Coco Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Before we get into the Bitcoin story, let's talk about what's actually happening to you in your pocketbooks at home right now. Since the start of the Iran war, coal is up 11%, rice 23%, a tank of gas 52%, crude oil 60%, sulfur 97%. And here's what the President of the United States had to say about it. It's just a little pain. That's your grocery bill. That's your tank of gas. That's your heating bill this winter. A little pain. So when I tell you that Iran just embedded themselves into the infrastructure of the global oil trade using an asset that the US government can't touch, I need you to understand the full weight of what that means. Here's what happened. Iran just launched their first Bitcoin product. Welcome to the club. It wasn't a treasury company. It wasn't a newsletter. It was something called the Hormuz Safe, a Bitcoin-backed insurance service for cargo ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. One of the most important choke points on the planet, 20% of the world's oil supply. And Iran just said, if you want to get through, pay up. Pay us in Bitcoin. Not dollars, not euros, not gold, Bitcoin. Now, why Bitcoin specifically? If your money lives in someone else's system, then it ain't your money. It never was your money. Bitcoin doesn't have a freeze button. It doesn't have a compliance department. It doesn't have a hotline to the Treasury or to the Fed to shut you down immediately. And that's not a flaw in the design. That is the design. Bitcoin is like Wemby with 40 points and 20 rebounds in his conference finals debut. He's a force that you cannot deny and that you can't stop. You simply have to accept and respect his impact on the game. Now here's what most people are going to say. Well, in Congress, especially Elizabeth Warren. This is terrible for Bitcoin. Iran's using Bitcoin. It's bad for the space. And this isn't me defending Iran in any way, shape, or form. But here's the truth and the reality. The same properties and abilities that allows a Canadian trucker to keep their bank account open when the government tries to shut them down is the same exact properties and abilities that lets Iran collect Bitcoin tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. You can't get one without the other. Bitcoin is a permissionless open source tool. It does not get to choose who chooses it. But here's a thesis that I have that not many people are talking about. Iran is stockpiling as much Bitcoin as they can because they realize the even more scary part about this war is the energy crisis that comes on the other side. Take a listen to what this expert has to say.
We are not in a physical shortage yet. We are in a deficit, meaning that demand is up here, supply's down here, and we are drawing our inventories. So the market's still well supplied pretty much everywhere in the world. There's pockets of shortages. But what happens when we hit tank bottoms? And that's coming any week now. And I want to emphasize to everybody out there, they look at it and they go, oh, the world has 8 billion barrels of oil storage. Most of that is for, it's pipe fill, it's system fill, it's working inventory. You cannot touch it. We're at least maybe 200 to 300 million barrels before we hit that level. In some products like diesel and distillate, you're there. Motor oils, you're there. Gasoline in the U.S. in July, you're going to be there. So when that happens, the deficit turns into a shortage and you got problems.
But really interesting, Jeff. Just in my own life, whether it be heating oil at home, whether it be filling up at the tank, I noticed prices were not significantly, but decent a bit lower off their peaks on all the products I use of late, and I'm buying forward or what have you as well. Why is it that this weeks away from major crisis that you're talking about, why are people just so relaxed about it?
Because everyone that comes on here, besides the 3 people you listed, and there's a few others I'm not going to be, are very dismissive of this. So the expectations are that, hey, we're going to get through this. I like to point out that none of these people touch bushels, barrels, or metric tons of any commodity. Every CEO, every oil company CEO, mining company CEO, every central or a commodity trader, anybody who gets their hands dirty in this business is telling you you have a problem. And I want to emphasize, we have seen this movie before. Remember 2021, in that time period, started seeing some inflation. Inflation is transitory. Don't worry. And wham, it hurt when you hit it. And we're going to hit it. And what I find shocking is what we see priced in the market. Financial markets price expectations, commodity markets price the physical reality of today.
Global energy is now down 60% since the start of the war. I don't think people fully grasp the tsunami that's coming, but I think one guy actually gets it. The world's greatest trader, Leopold Aschenbrenner. This dude turned $225 million into $5.5 billion just this year. And he did it through buying energy and AI-related infrastructure. And one of his biggest holdings and positions is Bitcoin miners. Why is that? Let me give you a thesis. What happens when there's global distrust and disorder and no one is willing to trade or barter with you for your oil, the bedrock of the global energy infrastructure and how we operate in this world completely? Well, you need some sort of energy infrastructure that will allow you to get paid for your resources. What's the only energy infrastructure network that can't be cut off or shut off, that allows you to get paid in a currency that's outside of any country's jurisdiction or control? Bitcoin mining. And that's why Bitcoin will continue to get adopted. It has a capped supply of 21 million, but an infinitely increasing amount of demand because of the geopolitical volatility and distrust that is in the world right now. This happens every single time that there's a fourth turning. Governments turn on each other. Governments try to buy up and control all of the resources that they can. And smart money and citizens flow to the place where they have the most freedom, and that is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a tool for freedom.
The whole idea of Rumble Wallet and just the ideology of Rumble is freedom. Freedom of your voice, freedom to do whatever you want, freedom to follow creators that you actually want to watch and deal with. And also, if you want to become a creator, being able to say your voice, speak your voice. And us creating the Rumble Wallet aligns directly with that. Because at the end of the day, our ideology is total control. You should be able to have control over your life and everything in it. And that's where, that's obviously where you got, had issues with YouTube, is because people in the Bitcoin space, people in the alternative monetary space, that threatens the already established system, because it's all about control at the end of the day. But now having these options, having like a platform like Rumble, having Rumble Wallet, being able to control your money, being able to actually pay creators in alternate ways, it gives people freedom. At the end of the day, it's about you being able to control what you have, owning what you control. And that's the most important thing. And we just want to emphasize that because, just to be honest, like a lot of people have gotten comfortable with the establishment and the system. And a lot of people are relearning that freedom is something that you actually need to have control over. And I think it goes back to the whole, I would say 10 years ago when cancel culture started to become like a really big thing. And people really started to see in real time, like, hey, I really don't have control out here. Hey, they debanked me. They deplatformed me. Like, you got to understand, this is your livelihood at the end of the day. So you need to have control in some way, shape, or form. That's not saying to not participate in the current system, but you need to have an insurance plan. And the insurance plan is alternative assets, alternative ways to actually view content, alternative ways to be able to monetize yourself. And this is going to go with every area of your life. And this is the world we're moving to, and we've reached a point of no return, and that's a good thing.
Ledn allows you to continue to maximize your freedom without encumbering capital gains or taxes. You can borrow from your Bitcoin assets without selling them, maintaining your sovereignty while also benefiting from the current financial system. Ledn will loan you up to 50% of loan to value of the Bitcoin that you put on their platform. They don't rehypothecate it, they don't trade it, they don't put it in some other person's account. You can see the wallet address in cold storage of where your Bitcoin is stored. You can borrow without a credit check, just your Bitcoin as collateral, and the fiat can get in your account in less than 6 hours. They've issued over tens of thousands of loans to people all across the globe without losing a single cent or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply to get started, or use the link in the description. People are being lulled to sleep and not realizing the value of Bitcoin because they're just looking at the price. They don't understand that it's a price that can actually be valued in a marketplace outside of the control of a system or government that says what you can own and what you can't. What value do you place on that? This is why the existing establishment sees Bitcoin as dangerous. It sees it as a tool that allows for capital to leave their borders that they can't control outside of their jurisdiction in cyberspace. That's why the EU will not adopt Bitcoin. Listen to this conversation from the TFTC podcast on exactly why the EU will not adopt Bitcoin and why other major countries will not adopt Bitcoin as a sovereign asset.
Why is there this digital euro initiative, right? And at the end of the day, it comes down to the EU technocrats need a new custodial solution that would allow them to centralize the savings built up from the EU private economy over, you could say, at least going back to World War II, but it's like centuries of work, right? And the EU growth that's been, or European growth that's been really on an upswing since 1492, essentially. And since the existing financial, custodial banking institutions have said they're not going to go along with that confiscation of property or that risk in terms of what they're on the hook for potentially and the ultimate outcomes of this military conflict. The EU needs to find a way to monetize and print against the savings of the EU businesses, households, private sector. And so the answer to that is to build this digital euro that rides the tailwinds of what Satoshi unlocked and has showed us is kind of the path forward on moving custodial integrity, but also limiting the ability of one counterparty or say a cartel from manipulating money supply against other participants in the monetary network that Bitcoin is, and that's the light in my book, and I think the TFTC audience agrees. But the EU needs a solution built on those same crypto, blockchain rails, but it can't be Bitcoin because Bitcoin is anathema to the task in front of them, right? And what is that task in front of them? It's to trap the savings of the local economy, print and monetize, to the state's objectives. And Bitcoin, which is, as everybody widely knows, once you take custody of that asset, right, you move it and you own the UTXOs, that capital can then leave the borders and flee. So that the ability of capital to leave and just walk out the door, because smart money by definition can see the degradation of property rights or the potential debasement on behalf of the state's objectives. They see it coming, they're going to flee. So that's why, in my mind, it's always been there, and we realize the EU has been the most antagonistic to Bitcoin. It's all starting to click with me exactly.
If this doesn't click with you, why you need to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, listen to this story that's shocking the Bitcoin industry right now. Prime Trust, formerly one of the largest leaders as a Bitcoin global custodian and trust company, is now suing all of the companies that it once supplied Bitcoin custody services for, like Strike, like Swan, like Fold, like Galaxy Digital, like Compass Mining. They're saying that the assets that weren't theirs are somehow part of their control. They're filing over $1 billion in complaints against these companies. And that's why you need to take self-custody seriously. That's why you need to schedule a free meeting with the team at the Bitcoin Way. Because if you don't control your Bitcoin, well, there's a chance through the existing legal system that someone can claim a right to say that it was never yours in the first place. Take your Bitcoin custody seriously. Take a meeting with a member of their team. Use the QR code or go to thebitcoinway.com/partner/Dante-Cook to understand exactly how you take custody of your Bitcoin so some prime custodian can't try to claw it back through a legal battle. Let me leave you with a final point from Coinbase's chief legal officer, who in a recent clip had this to say about the Clarity Act. With this bill, law enforcement will have unprecedented powers to go after bad actors who happen to use crypto while protecting victims and good actors in this space. Let's listen to what he had to say.
With this bill, law enforcement will have unprecedented powers to go after the bad actors who happen to use crypto while protecting victims and protecting good actors in this space. You're going to see much clearer rules defining what investors are entitled to understand about their crypto investments before they purchase them, rather than having to learn after the fact about facts or circumstances that they didn't appreciate. You're also going to see rules in place for stable coins, a particular type of crypto or digital asset that define much more restrictively and explicitly who can provide rewards or yields on those assets while protecting the right of ordinary Americans to enjoy the economic benefits of these assets that are available to them. And so while there are certainly no shortage of complaints, not just from the industry, but from those adverse to the industry, I think on balance, this bill is in the American people's interest. And that's why our representatives, I think, were by and large persuaded that the right thing to do is to move this bill forward and get it to the Senate for a full vote as quickly as possible.
What happens when they deem you a bad actor? What makes you a good actor? Is it just what someone else has to say about how you're using your money with your energy and your effort that you worked for in an asset and a vehicle that you decided to save in to fight off inflation from a money printer that you didn't choose to print from? What if they say you're a threat to the state? What if they say you're an illegal user of energy? Well, Bitcoin is going to start to make a lot more sense. So don't just look at the price. Look at Bitcoin as a tool for freedom. Look to see if your enemies are successfully using it to launch Bitcoin-backed products. Look to see why the establishment won't accept Bitcoin as a sovereign asset. And then you'll understand the value of Bitcoin. And you'll understand why you need to subscribe to shows like these, because we help you to try to understand what's happening at a macro picture. And you'll understand why we partner with companies like SAS Mining. They understand that energy infrastructure is the greatest way to help decentralize the network, but also to help you to maintain your sovereignty in a tax-efficient way that sends sats directly to your wallet while you sleep. The team at SAS Mining understands that energy is the last battleground. It's the place for the next crisis. And so owning a Bitcoin miner is one of the most valuable pieces of real estate that you can own in today's time and economy. Use the QR code to get started. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.